overextension does not start with workload. It starts with identity. From the outside, it looks like you are doing too much, too many responsibilities, too many expectations, too many moving parts. But if you look closely, many high-achieving corporate women are not overwhelmed because of what is being asked of them. They are overwhelmed because of what they feel responsible for. And those are not always the same thing. Let's anchor something important first. High-achieving corporate women do not burn out because they are weak. They burn out because they are misaligned. And overextension is one of the clearest symptoms of that misalignment. Let's slow this down. Because overextension often looks admirable. It looks like commitment, reliability, leadership, excellence. Being the one who can be trusted, the one who delivers, the one who carries responsibility without complaint. And because it looks positive, it is rarely questioned. But over time, something begins to shift. What once felt like contribution begins to feel like pressure. What once felt like ownership begins to feel like weight. And slowly, the line between responsibility and overextension becomes blurred. Now, here is the deeper layer. Overextension is rarely about capacity. It is about identity. It is about how you define your role, how you define your value, how you define what it means to be good at what you do. For many high-achieving women, identity becomes tied to being dependable, being exceptional, being the one who steps in, the one who solves problems, the one who does not drop the ball. And when identity is tied to these traits, saying no feels like failure, delegating feels like a risk, slowing down feels like underperformance. So you continue even when it is no longer sustainable. Let's make this more real. You may notice patterns like taking on work that was not explicitly assigned to you, feeling responsible for outcomes beyond your role, struggling to switch off mentally after work, reviewing things multiple times to ensure perfection, stepping in quickly when others hesitate, not because you were asked to, but because you feel it is your responsibility. And over time, that internal pressure becomes exhausting. Now, here is the critical distinction. There is a difference between commitment and overextension. Commitment is aligned. It is intentional. It is sustainable. Overextension is compensatory. It is driven by internal pressure. It is reactive and it becomes unsustainable over time. But from the outside, they can look the same. Which is why many high-achieving women do not recognize overextension early enough. So what is driving this pattern? Let's go deeper. There are three common drivers. The first is identity attachment. You have built a reputation. You are known for delivering, for being reliable, exceeding expectations, and maintaining that identity becomes important. So you continue operating at that level, even when your role has evolved, even when your responsibilities have increased, even when your capacity is stretched, because that identity feels safe. It feels familiar, but it may no longer be aligned with your current level. The second driver is unspoken expectations. Not everything you carry has been explicitly assigned. Some expectations are assumed, interpreted, internalized. You anticipate needs. You step in early. You fill gaps before they become visible. And while this makes you highly effective, it also creates invisible workload. work that no one formally asked for, but that you feel responsible for. The third driver is lack of boundary clarity. Not rigid boundaries, but aligned boundaries. When identity is unclear, boundaries become inconsistent. You say yes when you should pause. You absorb more than you should carry. You adjust instead of evaluating. And over time, that creates a pattern where overextension becomes the norm. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine carrying a bag. At first, you add what is necessary, your responsibilities, your role, your commitments. But over time, you begin adding things that were not originally yours. Small things, unnoticed things, until eventually the weight becomes difficult to carry. But because you added each item gradually, you do not immediately question it. That is how overextension develops. Gradually, quietly, over time. Now, let's shift the conversation because the solution is not to suddenly do less. It is to realign how you relate to responsibility. The first shift is redefining your role. Not everything that can be done by you should be done by you. At higher levels, your role changes from doing to directing, from carrying to enabling. And if your identity has not adjusted to that shift, you will continue operating at that level that no longer fits. The second shift is learning pause before responding. Overextension thrives on immediacy. You respond quickly, you take ownership quickly, you step in quickly. But alignment requires pause. Not every request needs an immediate yes. Some require evaluation, some require delegation, some require reframing. And creating that pause creates space for better decisions. The third shift is aligning boundaries with identity. Boundaries are not about restriction, they are about alignment. They reflect what you are responsible for and what you are not. They protect your capacity so that your contribution remains effective, not diluted. Now let's connect this back to sustainability because overextension is not sustainable, not at higher levels, not long term. And if left unaddressed, it leads back to burnout. Not because of lack of capacity, but because of misalignment between identity and responsibility. This is why the RTS method includes sustain because alignment is not just about getting to the next level. It is about maintaining alignment as you operate within it. Realign, understand your identity. Transition, adjust how you operate. Sustain, protect that alignment over time. Because success that costs your identity is not sustainable success. Let's bring this together. If you're feeling overextended, pause and ask, what am I carrying that is not actually mine? Where am I responding from identity pressure instead of aligned responsibility? What needs to be released, not added? These questions create clarity, and clarity creates relief. Let's recap. Overextension is driven by identity, not just workload. Commitment is aligned. Overextension is compensatory. And sustainable success requires aligned responsibility, not excessive responsibility. If you are a high achieving corporate woman navigating this, you do not need to do less. You need to carry differently. And that shift changes everything. In the next video, we are going to talk about something that protects alignment long term, boundaries for high achieving professionals. Not as restriction, but as strategic structure. I will see you on the next one.